Which is the best luxury river cruise line in Europe today? Welcome to RTE-Travel Talk. Ask a real travel expert, the show that talks to travel professionals around the world. Joining me today to compare Riverside Luxury Cruises and Tauck River Cruises is Mindy Baker of Wheels Up Travel and Cruise. If you enjoy the journey with us today, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you'll never miss an episode. And if this video's got you inspired, give it a thumbs up or drop a comment and join the conversation. It really helps the channel out. Thanks for being part of our travel community, whether you're a longtime fan or just dropping by. We really appreciate it. And now, on with the show. Hi, Mindy. Welcome back to RTE Travel Talk.
Thanks, Ken. I'm always excited to be here.
Great to have you with us, Mindy. I understand that you've just recently returned from two really exceptional river cruises, one with Riverside Cruises, kind of a new player in the market, and then in the luxury market. Well, I guess both of them are probably in the luxury market, but your
Yes.
second one that you sailed with is Tauck. And
Yes.
I'm anxious to hear all about that today. How does that sound?
That sounds great. I'm excited to chat river cruising.
Perfect. Why don't you give us a quick overview of the two cruise lines that you were with, the itineraries, and your experiences on board with Tauck and Riverside?
Just as a quick overview, I recently attended the ASTA River Cruise Expo, which is a wonderful event put on for travel agents such as myself. The expo this year was in Vienna, Austria. And this event actually allowed me to experience both cruise lines. So throughout the expo, I stayed exclusively on Riverside Mozart for 4 nights. And then right after that, I hopped on board the Tauck MS Savor and we sailed for 5 nights up to Bratislava in Slovakia. We sailed through the Wachau Valley and Milk, and then on to Salzburg, and then Český Krumlov in the Czech Republic. And then our final stop was in Wilshofen, Germany.
The 4 nights that you were with Riverside, you were probably just anchored alongside, but you really got to experience the service and the ship itself then, I gather.
We sure did. We were anchored in Vienna. We also were able to experience a riverside excursion and the full gamut of the cuisine, the service, as well as all of the amenities on board.
One thing that our viewers and listeners are always curious about, Mindy, is service levels on board. How do you feel that the service and staff compared between Riverside and Tauck?
Both river cruise lines were truly wonderful when it came to service. With Riverside, you will have a room attendant and a butler.
Okay.
In addition, there's a wonderful culinary team from the chef to the servers who just make sure everything is really perfected. Between all of this crew, they were sure that your every need was met. With Tauck, you'll actually have a cruise director as well as 2 assistant directors. So the crew to passenger ratio is quite small. So there's a lot of crew and not a lot of passengers. The crew members were dedicated to service in a lot of different areas. Each experience was equally lovely, and they really left us wanting for nothing, right down to Band-Aids for blisters that I may have acquired by wrong shoes. So they were all fantastic.
So with Riverside, you had your own room attendant and butler. Did I understand that with Tauck, you did not have a butler?
No butlers on Tauck, but there are room attendants that, service your room as far as the turn down service in the evening, and then the cleaning service during the day. So yeah, the butler experience is specific to Riverside in that you have a 24-hour access to this butler who is truly at your service.
In terms of a river cruise, do you think a butler really adds to the experience?
I guess it depends on the individual and how they would use that amenity. From my experience, it was fantastic. They can bring whatever you need, throughout all hours of the day. So that is a nice addition to have.
Dining is a very large part of river cruising. How would you describe the culinary experience between Riverside and Tauck? Is there anything that kind of sets each one apart? How does that work?
Ken, well, I have to say that Tauck was quite lovely in that they highlighted local fare such as schnitzel, the Austrian schnitzel, or for example, we had St. Patrick's Day on board while we were sailing, and they presented a divine menu.
Yeah.
I had the most delicious Reuben sandwich I've ever had. So the food on Tauck was fantastic, but I have to say, Riverside really stole the show when it came to cuisine. The cuisine on board Riverside is truly five-star delectable, but also presented in a five-star fashion. It was really striking and felt like a Michelin star worthy experience.
Right.
You know, both of them had a wonderful breakfast and lunch buffet. And then also, I'm a big cheese connoisseur, so everybody had wonderful cheeses,
Yeah.
but Riverside stole the show there too. They had a cheese cart with incredible cheeses from all over Europe. The Riverside dining experience was really fantastic. I will say a couple special things that Tauck does is they do host a seafood buffet on 7-night or longer itineraries. And then also there's a captain's dinner. Also, each one did a wonderful job highlighting and pairing local wines and serving that endlessly throughout the cruise. So,
Fantastic. So if I heard you correctly, they're both great.
yes.
Tauck is wonderful, but if you're looking for an actual five-star dining experience, you're going to give the edge to Riverside.
You nailed
Yeah.
it.
So what about the accommodations, Mindy?
So, with accommodations, you are really going to want for nothing with either cruise line.
Right.
I will say Tauck staterooms were very spacious. So I really liked the layouts of all of their staterooms, and they take advantage of just having a panoramic French door, but it also saves space for extra stateroom space as well as a spacious bathroom. With Tauck, the shower was full sized. The bathroom space in general was quite nice. And then, you know, the decor was elegant and cozy. It made it really easy to spend a lot of time just in your stateroom
Right.
looking out along the river. I also really liked that there was a lot of 110 outlets offered. And then with Riverside, the rooms were stunning. They were beautifully appointed, very cozy, very warm. They also had staterooms with the French style sliding doors that open the space up to the outside world. But I will say that the space was quite tight. Even though, let's see, I was in a ruby level suite, which did have a sofa and a desk with like an espresso machine and shelving, but everything was indeed quite tight compared to the Tauck room that I did stay in. The features were very nice though, and they did feel upscaled and luxury. Tauck was very nice and spacious. Riverside presented the luxury amenities.
Okay. So if you're looking for a little bit more space, Tauck has probably got a bit of an edge there, but again, going after the luxury market like Riverside is doing, we give the edge to them for like amenities inside the stateroom.
100%.
Yeah.
Yes, they really nailed it, even down to the treat that they would leave you each night.
Now, we should probably take a minute here and say that both of these are classed as luxury cruise lines.
Absolutely.
They just take a little different approach to the particular style of luxury they offer.
Yeah.
So let's touch on the excursions. Tauck is known for its all-inclusive curated tours. How did Riverside's excursions match up, and were there any differences?
Tauck is known for its all-inclusive curated tours, and as many of your viewers may already know, Tauck is celebrating 100 years this
Yep.
year. With that in mind, Tauck has a very special place in the tourism landscape. They have forged long-term relationships across the world. They offer, you know, special, more one-of-a-kind experiences. For example, you know, one of the ones that we experienced, you know, an elevated dinner experience. So where you think you're going to be having dinner on the ship, you actually are whisked off into, you know, Vienna for a formal night at the Palais Pallavicini, featuring a wonderful classical orchestra with the Viennese ballet
Wow.
dancers. So Tauck is very, very thoughtful and immersive when it comes to their excursions. So when I think about Riverside, they also offer very lovely excursions and experiences within those excursions. We were taken through Vienna and given ample time to explore wonderful sites. We were guided by a wonderful guide, and then we got to explore things like modern Mozart museums and then palace gardens. And then with each stop, we were also greeted with local treats like the delicious Mozart bonbon. And then one time when we did stop at the palace gardens, we were greeted with champagne from Riverside. So, you know, they really did a great job making us feel like we were Vienna's most important people. The guides and the motor coaches were all wonderful throughout each cruise line. And I think that each one offered a truly luxury excursion
Oh,
experience.
fantastic. Now, one major difference between the two, Tauck and Riverside, is with Tauck, all of your shore excursions are included as part of your package. Riverside takes a little different tack, and they kind of give you an a la carte you can pick and choose.
Yes, both do a wonderful job with inclusions for the most part. When it comes to excursions, it does vary a little bit. So Riverside does have more of an a la carte feel, as well as they can do custom excursions. But for the most part, as far as, beverages and food and all of the onboard experiences outside of things like spa services, that's all going to be included. The house champagne on Riverside is Tallinger, and that's freely flowing. They also offer an extra amenity. It's the vintage room on board the Mozart, and it is beautiful. It's this stunning room. It offers a 7-course tasting and wine pairing experience. That would be extra, but for the most part, everything after that would be pretty inclusive. Now, Tauck likes to tout that they never want a guest to pull out their wallet while they're on board. So I really like that. The Tauck touch is truly wonderful when it comes to inclusions. Their house champagne is Veuve Clicquot. And then they also do something fun that's called Splash the Cash, when they hand each guest local cash to spend for lunch while we're off the ship out and about on our excursions. They'll let us try the local fare by
Oh,
splashing the
fantastic.
cash.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, you can't be getting handed cash. So, each one has a little special touches that they sprinkle
Yeah.
in throughout.
So it sounds to me like when it comes to excursions, they're both great, but we're going to give the nod to Tauck for the extra experience and the splash the cash and that sort of thing.
I think
Yeah.
so. It's just such a seamless
Yeah.
experience, and so, yeah, I think they really nail it.
Now, speaking of what's included, I gather the pricing models can vary quite a bit. Let's kind of get down to brass tacks here. Can you kind of break down some of the inclusions that you would get with a Riverside cruise versus a Tauck cruise and what travelers should expect in terms of value?
These are probably 2 of the pricier river cruise lines
For
just
sure.
because of the level of
Yeah.
luxury that they do offer. With Tauck, you're going to see, again, like I mentioned, really everything is all included. Again, they don't want their guests to pull out their wallet. And then Riverside, more of like the a la carte with your excursions. But for the most part, you're going to feel very all inclusive there as well. As far as food and beverage goes, you'll see a little more of pricing dynamic when it comes to your excursions or some extra add-ons like the vintage room or other onboard or off-port experiences that you can add in. So, but both command these prices gracefully
Yeah.
because of their beautiful offerings.
So if I were to put that another way, with Tauck, everything's in. Everything is basically included. You're not going to take your wallet out of your pocket for the entire time that you're there. In fact, they're going to give you money to spend. To
Yes.
spend. With Riverside, they're taking the a la carte method to say, okay, well, we're not going to charge you for stuff that you're not going to use. But if you
Mhm.
want this really great shore excursion, we have it at this value. If you want this vintage room experience, we have it at this value. So you can start with your Riverside cruise itinerary and then build it up from there. Sound right?
Yes, and it is important to note that they really do a nice job providing options as far as the excursions go too. So it's nice to be able to choose, and both river cruise lines have wonderful options.
Great, great. What about the overall vibe, Mindy, on board? Did you notice any difference between the demographics on board, the onboard energy, the ambiance?
I think that in general, river cruising tends to draw similar demographics across the fleet.
Hmm.
But I think as the younger generations open up their minds to river cruising, I do think that maybe Riverside might have the edge here as far as being more appropriate and more appealing with the energy that they do bring to the river cruise scene, some of the more modern touches. But however, I do think Tauck does a fantastic job catering to a multi generational vacationer.
Right.
So if wanted to bring, multi generations with you, I think Tauck would be a wonderful way to do that. They have lots of experience here, but I think either way, a river cruise is just such an exceptional way for experienced travelers to see like off the beaten paths,
Yeah.
and for new travelers to feel like right at home in a new country. So, I mean, you really can't go wrong with either choice, but each one offers its own vibe for sure.
Yeah, and that's a really good point about Tauck because with their great history, unlike Riverside, they have what's known as the Tauck Bridges program, which actually caters to teens and children on boards with activities and stuff. So They probably are a much better choice for a multi-gen experience.
Yes.
And onboard activities, they can really shape the experience. What stood out for you on Riverside and Tauck?
What I really loved about the onboard experience with Riverside, to take it to the opposite end of the spectrum, was they had a large indoor pool with a jacuzzi and a spa with wonderful amenities like a steam room, sauna and massage. And this whole area was just beautiful and very relaxing. The gym was one of the largest I've seen across the entire River Cruise fleet. And then I really also loved the energy of some of the open gathering spaces on Riverside. So the bistro, which was just right up the stairs from the lobby, just made this quaint, wonderful meeting space. Here you could have like a cup of coffee or a snack, and they even made ice cream. And then, like I was saying earlier, there's just little gyms tucked away throughout the ship. The Connoisseurs Club, where you can get specialty cigars and whiskeys. There's a movie theater. There's just so many little places where you can gather intimately or indulge in
You'd,
relaxation
you'd,
or have a party.
you'd almost think we were talking about an ocean cruise ship here.
It does give
Yeah,
a higher level of
yeah,
energy, I think. Riverside really brought a great entertainment landscape.
that's fantastic. That's
Now, when I do think about the Tauck MS Savor, I did mention Arthur's in the back of the ship. Lots of food available, but you can also access the top deck. I do think that Tauck's top deck did take the cake over Riverside's. Riverside's did have a lovely bar on the top, but Tauck did have just such a lovely space. The jacuzzi was up there, so it's fun to, enjoy the river cruise experience in a jacuzzi on the top deck, as well as that putting green and a beautiful walking space. Nightly, they would bring in entertainment that was typically brought on board from the local areas. And we enjoyed everything from classical music and then just a ton of talent throughout the sailing. So,
oh, fantastic. If you had to describe the key strength or signature of each line, one thing Riverside does best and one thing that Tauck does best, what do you think they'd be?
with Riverside, I think maybe a good tagline would be ultra luxury and exquisite cuisine.
Okay.
And I think for Tauck, I think that one's pretty easy, just 100 years of travel immersion and excellence.
Fantastic. On both these lines, were there any standout wow moments or surprises, either good or bad, on either of these two cruises?
Honestly, I can't think of anything bad to say, but so
Well, it's a
yeah,
river cruise. How could you say anything bad?
I know, especially the luxury
Yeah,
river cruise lines. So, yeah, very hard to come up with anything bad. But with Tauck, when I think about wow, for me, just that everything was truly seamless, and I loved that I had to put zero thought into my daily activities. I could get off of the ship, follow a tour guide, get a wonderful local immersion experience with spending cash in hand, and then get back on the ship and sail away without a care in the world. Then when I think about Riverside, I think back to the culinary experience. That was really a wow moment for me. Just the whole experience on top of the food quality was really a wow for me.
excellent, excellent. So, based on your experience thus far with both lines, who would you recommend to Riverside and who might be a better fit for Tauck, in your opinion?
That's a good question. I'm thinking maybe more of like the adventurous spirit, and anyone who considers themselves to be a foodie
Right?
would really love the Riverside experience, as well as that true upscale luxury feeling. I do think that a laid back luxury or culturally curious spirit might more so enjoy the Tauck experience.
Right on, right on. So, looking ahead, can you see yourself going back to Riverside and Tauck again in the future? And if so, what would be on your travel to do list?
Oh gosh, yes. Again, I would happily sail both cruise lines
Yeah,
again, and I think in the future, I would choose probably a Christmas market cruise on the Rhine on board the Riverside Debussy, or with Tauck, I would probably choose their Holland and Belgium, and with the spring river
right.
cruise, I see windmills and tulips galore, and I think either itinerary would be super enchanting.
Excellent. Mindy, this is a lot of super information. Is there anything else you might advise people before we sail on out of here today about Riverside and Tauck?
Oh, thanks, Ken. I guess my first bit of advice would be to book as early as possible to get the itinerary that you want. A lot of these itineraries, and especially themed river cruise itineraries like Christmas markets or springtime tulips, Oktoberfest, those all sell out quite
Right.
quickly. And then I think that when it comes to choosing the best cruise for your next vacation, I think it's important to work with the travel travel advisor who has experienced the river cruise lines, who has knowledge, and can help you make all the important decisions along the way.
Perfect. Makes total sense to me. Well, Mindy, this is wonderful. If folks wanted to reach out to you about a possible river cruise with Tauck or Riverside, how would they do that?
Oh, thanks, Ken. My phone number is 989-295-0471. And my email is Mindy at wheelsuptravelco.com. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram, but the best way to contact me is to use the link in the show notes below. This lets you choose a time that works best for your calendar so I can dedicate time to ensure I know exactly what you're looking for your next river cruise.
Super. I'll leave that contact information in the description for folks that might like to reach out. But as always, since I like to live vicariously through the travels of all the wonderful people I get to meet on this channel, I have to know where you're off to next. What's on your travel to-do list?
Yeah, so I'm pretty excited to experience the Rocky Mountaineer luxury train through the Canadian Rockies in July with my mom and my son. And then I'll be off to the Greek Isles on the Disney Fantasy with Disney Cruise Line.
Fantastic. We'll have to have you back to do a review of the Rocky Mountaineer. How does that sound?
That would be wonderful. I'd love to share the experience with you and your viewers.
Perfect. Well, with that, Mindy, I'm going to just wish you safe and happy travels on all your future cruises and destinations. May the wind always be at your back. And I hope to see you on the observation deck of a Tauck ship sometime soon in the future.
Thank you so much, Ken. I'm looking forward to those ocean breezes and river currents.
Take care.
You too.
And that about wraps it up for today, folks. A very special thanks to my guest, Mindy Baker of Wheels Up Travel and Cruise. If you'd like to reach out to Mindy about a possible river cruise, I will leave her contact information in the show notes. If you'd like to reach out to us, you can simply send a question to questions@realtravelexperts.com. Visit our website, realtravelexperts.com, or simply leave a comment. We always respond. And as always, folks, if you enjoy this content, a like, subscribe, share, and ring of the bell is certainly appreciated and helps other folks just like you to find our content. So until next time, happy travels.